guys, as you can see here, I did get my PWS UXR back from the warranty work. I sent it in back in March and just recently got it back about 2 weeks ago. And since I've gotten it back, I have gotten it out to the range twice. And in those range trips, there's some good points, there's some bad points. It's really a mixed bag since I got this rifle back. Now, one thing, as you can see, this is no longer using a 308 magazine. That's because I did get a 5.56 conversion kit for this thing, or to be specific, a 223 Wylde conversion kit for it. So I have been running it with that as well as my 308 conversion kit, the original one. So we'll get into that a little bit. The first range trip, which is where I had the majority of the issues, I was only using it in 308 because I hadn't gotten the 5.56 kit in yet. While the second trip, I used it both in 5.56 and 308, so stay tuned throughout the entire video to see how it did on both of those trips. Hey guys, so I'm trying something new here today. I just got my PWS UXR back from maintenance work. It took me about 4 months. I sent it off in March and I got it back just before July started. So it was quite a wait for this guy to come back. They did give me a rundown of everything they replaced on it, and this is essentially Theseus's UXR at this point because they replaced the barrel, they replaced the receiver, all the springs in it are replaced. The only thing that's really been the same on this guy is probably the stock as well as the lower receiver here. These are the same. They actually did replace the magwell though, so that's another part. So I'm hoping that this guy will work and all the changes that they made on this is going to fix the issues I was having. So again, I was having some problems with rounds not going fully into battery, which eventually caused me to break the charging handle when I tried to mortar this thing to get a round out of the chamber. So that was a major issue. So just reliability issues in general, and then some concerning wear on the inside of the receiver on the rails. It was starting to ping a little bit where the cam rotates in there, so that is a potential issue. But since they swapped out the barrel with the gas system as well as the buffer on the back of the bolt carrier, I'm hoping that's going to make it run a little bit smoother. So to start things out, I just have a 20 round magazine, the Magpul magazine that they ship with, full of M80 ball from Winchester, just standard white box. Try this thing out, see if it works. If it does work reliably, I'll go ahead and get my Vortex Razor zeroed on it, and then we'll see if we can put some cans on it and have it function reliably. So let's go ahead and get started out. So far so good, it chambered. And not so good. So let's see what we got here. Did not cycle, or it ejected, but it did not pick up a round from the magazine. Same issue. Same issue. And this is on the normal setting. All right, so just in case it's ammo, I'm gonna go ahead and swap it over to my Lancer mag, which has ZQI, I believe, ammunition in there. So we'll see if this cycles. So far, so good. Not cycling. Oh, and then we got a failure to extract there. So I'm going to pop out the magazine. All right, so that is an issue. So I'll go ahead, see if I can change this over to the adverse position and see if that gets it running. All right, so I went ahead, got it swapped over to the adverse setting. So we'll see if a little bit of extra gas is going to help this guy work. And give it a couple shots here. Nope, same issue. So it is not picking up that second round. Adverse did not help at all, so that might be an issue. Oh, sec, another failure to eject here. Yep, that's an empty case. So we are still having some pretty significant reliability issues here. I'm gonna keep running it and just see if I can get it. Maybe it's a break-in thing, which would be an issue in its own right. And there we go, failure. Oh, I guess we did get that one in the chamber. Let's go ahead. And there we go, a failure to eject. So that is another problem. So Yep, not a good start here, but I'll keep plugging through and see if I can get some more reliability out of this thing, get it cycled more than one round. All right, so I went ahead, popped off the pistol grip on this guy and the mag weld and reinstalled them just to see if that could be causing any issues. Now, full disclosure, I did not fully disassemble, like pull the barrel and disassemble the bolt carrier. Once I got this back from PWS, I wanted to try it out from them, considering they said that they tested it out with different ammunition and suppressors and it worked fine. So I didn't want to change anything on it if it was working in that way. But we'll go ahead, try it again, just see if I can get this thing to cycle more than one round. Nope. And then you can see there, we had a failure to go into battery. This might be a magazine issue, so I'm thinking if I change this to one of the old mag welds, although I don't know if that's gonna fix it. See, ejects just fine. Still straight pull. Nothing. So not super thrilled about that. And just to be thorough here, I went ahead and swapped it over to the suppressor setting, just in case it's overriding the magazine because the bolt carrier is moving so fast, because that could be a potential issue, and it would be an issue if that's the case. I have 3 rounds left in the original Magpul 20-round magazine, so we'll go ahead and see if it cycles now. Even worse, did not extract, which normally that's a good thing in the suppressor setting. And I got the issue again that broke the charging handle in the first place, so I'm gonna have to mortar it. And that thing does not wanna go. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and get this cleared. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do this off camera. All right, guys, so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and take this guy home, fully disassemble, reassemble it, retorque everything, see if I can get it to run next time. This seems to be an issue with feeding more than anything else. I still am getting those failures to go into battery, failures to eject with this, so a lot of the same issues I was having before, and with that round getting stuck in the chamber, again, I'm worried about that charging handle breaking when I try and mortar it. So that's going to be a concern. If this continues to have issues, of course, I'm going to call PWS again and see what they would recommend to fix this. In all likelihood, it's probably going to end up going back to them at some point. So that is absolutely concerning. You can see they absolutely drenched this thing with oil when they sent it back to me. Pretty much just cleaned the stuff that was on the outside, left the oil on the inside the way it was from them. So definitely not super encouraging at this point. But we'll see what happens in the next range trip and see if I can get this thing to run. All right, guys, so this is a week later. I finally got in the 5.56 kit for this, so I swapped it over to the 5.56 magwell as well as my 5.56 barrel in here, so hopefully this is going to work better than the 308. Today I also brought out my extra magwell, the original one, which dropped magazines when I didn't want it to. However, it did load, so we can at least try that with the 308 and see if it works. But let's go ahead and start it out with the 5.56 and just see if this thing will cycle more than one round. All right, that is way better. This thing actually worked. I am so happy about that. It also locked back. That was something I was a little bit concerned about, and I'll show you why in a little bit here. But so far, in 5.56, it seems to work. All right, so far it seems to be cycling okay in 5.56, so that's absolutely fantastic. Glad this thing is starting to work at least a little bit. So just gonna try and get a quick zero on my Vortex Razor on here and just see what kind of accuracy I can get. It is at 25 yards, so not expecting anything too crazy. All right, now that I actually have a working rifle, you can see I do have the original muzzle brake from the factory on this and not a chemo, so I can't use a can on it yet. Story behind that is this muzzle device on here is incredibly tight. I attempted to get it off, boiled it, tried heat gun, pretty much all the tricks except for soaking it in a penetrating oil. So that's going to be the next thing I do now that I know that this thing actually works, to try and get that swapped out so I can throw a can on this guy. For now though, it seems to be working just fine. I got another 10 rounds loaded up here. Ammunition is just Fiocchi 55 grain M193, so nothing special, but it's working. Perfect, flawless function. So very happy with that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this swapped back over to the 308 kit and see if I can get any better functioning out of it today. All right, so I got the UXR swap back over to the 308 barrel, magwell, all that fun stuff. This is my original magwell that I got with the rifle first of all, and this one was the one that they originally replaced. They sent me a replacement magwell for it because I had mags dropping out when I did not want them to. But it did work with the original Magpul magazine, so we're gonna go ahead and just see if this thing will run today. Haven't done a whole lot besides take it apart and throw it back together, but maybe that was enough to jar something loose and get it to work. We'll see. That's 2 rounds. That's better than we've gotten in the past, so I think maybe the magwell is the issue here. Even though 2 rounds isn't exactly great. And not necessarily picking up a round. And then there you can see it also did not fully lock open. It just kind of locked on the follower instead of on the actual magazine block there. So I've been able to get a couple of rounds to cycle through it. However, it's still not great, obviously. So I swapped it over to the adverse setting just to see if that's going to help things at all. Might hurt things, we'll see. We'll just give it a shot here. Nope, that did not help. If anything, there we go. We got a round stuck in the chamber. Please don't break the charging handle. And that guy was stuck in there. So adverse might not be the way to go for this. And just to give it a college try, I did throw my SRBS 762 from B&T on there. We'll go ahead and see if this cycles any better with a can on there. It is still in the normal setting since this is a low back pressure can. It shouldn't need the suppressor setting to function. So apparently it works with a can, but not without a can. That is really strange to me for some reason. Again, that was in the normal setting, not in the suppressed setting. So yeah, that's a little bit confusing. Even in the adverse setting without a can on it, it didn't cycle correctly. But with a can on it in the normal setting, it works. A little bit weird. Alright guys, so after those range trips, I do want to give you a bit of a look inside the UXR just to see how the wear is progressing on it since I've gotten it back, and with a fairly low amount of rounds through it. So in 5.56, I probably had less than 50 rounds through it in that one trip there. Of course, I'm going to be using this at a competition, which is going to get quite a few more rounds through it, if I can get the lower receiver off here. There we go, and just give you a look at the wear here. So this is the original lower receiver. They didn't replace this or the Trigger Tech trigger in there. And I really don't see anything I'm super concerned about in there. Of course, it did come back incredibly oily. So that is one thing there, but it works fine. Stock still has quite a bit of wiggle to it, which is not my favorite feature of this rifle, but overall it does work all right. Now moving back here, you can see this is the magwell for the 5.56 version, and they do come a little bit tight, so it might take a little wiggling for me to get this out here. Eventually, there we go. All right. And sorry for the shake there, but this is the 5.56 magwell, and I'm going to roll in comparison with the 308 there. So here are the magwells for both the 308 here in my left hand and the 5.56 in my right hand. You can tell the difference, first of all, because there are two little dimples on the 5.56 and a single dimple on the 308. And then underneath you can see the magwell is quite a bit smaller for those Stanag 5.56 magazines. And that's where one potential issue with this magazine, or with this 5.56 setup, popped up when I first got this in, which actually in the range trip turned out to not be an issue. So if I put a magazine in there, you can see the bolt catch, bolt release here is dogleg pretty far forward compared to the 308 version, which just lifts straight up and down. This guy gets a little bit sticky. So if I take the magazine out, you can see there is an extension there, and it's a little bit sticky with when you're not shooting the gun, but when I had it out at the range, it actually functioned perfectly, locked back every time. So turned out to not be the issue that I was thinking it might be, just due to essentially physics and leverage. Having that extension there means everything else is going to be quite a bit tighter. But at the range, it worked out pretty well. The new magwell that shipped with my gun worked perfectly as well. So the issue was probably gassing for the 308 and not the magazine well. Moving back to the upper receiver, we'll go ahead and first of all pop our pin back out, which decided to push back in again, and remove our recoil spring here, which is pretty long, so just gotta get in the right position, and it'll come right out the back of the bolt carrier. And this they didn't replace. This is just this, well, they did replace the spring, they didn't replace the guide rod on it. So might be slightly different as far as tension goes, but in any case, it seems to work quite a bit better than the original. Now here is the bolt carrier group. There is definitely some wear here. I think the bolt carrier itself was not replaced. So this is from my original rifle pre-warranty. And the bolt here is the 5.56 bolt, of course, since I got the 5.56 barrel in there. And I do have concerns if I go ahead and pop out firing pin, retaining pin. There we go. So got it started. I'll go ahead and pop out that firing pin, retaining pin, just all the way. And wow, that just shot out a detent there. So I'm gonna have to go find that. All right, now one thing I just learned, do not pull too hard on your firing pin, retaining pin, or else it will actually pull straight out and your detent will go shooting off. I was able to find mine. It was a huge pain to get back in there, but just be aware of that. Make sure you're being a little careful with this guy, because that detent is a huge pain in the butt to get back in there if you don't lose it. Now, looking at the internals, my biggest concern here is I think this is actually my original cam pin, and you can tell right there, there's some major wear going on, and it flattened on one of the upper corners of the cam pin that rides in the channel. Along the bottom, that's typical-ish, where there's a couple of uneven patterns in there, which I don't love, but that's the biggest problem I'm seeing with the cam pin. Now, the bolt itself, of course, I don't have a ton of rounds through the 5.56 bolt, but it does look pretty good so far. And moving back to the upper receiver itself, looking on the inside, the wear isn't too bad so far, considering I don't have a ton of ammunition through it. You can see there is a little bit of a dent starting to form where that cam pin turns, which was an issue on my original one. So that's something I want to keep an eye on as I get more rounds through it, and hopefully it doesn't get any worse than it is there, or else that is a concern about this guy beating itself to death. Not sure if that happened from 308 suppressed or from 5.56, but that is something I'm going to keep an eye on. Now, looking up at the charging handle, this again is a place I had major issues with my original one, which broke the charging handle. And there's a little bit better tension holding it up front again on this little pin right there. You can see there's a slot there, and there's a pin on the inside of the end of the charging handle right there that it's supposed to lock on. Again, not the most reliable way to lock it forward, but even if it does reciprocate a little bit, it's not a big deal. Now the wear is not too bad in the channel. You can see right here at the very end of the channel, there is a bit of the finish coming off. That's kind of typical. The ACR is the same way, so I'm not super concerned about that. Other than that, the charging handle seems fine so far. All right, so as you can see there, it is a bit of a mixed bag with this rifle. I am very excited to keep testing it out in 5.56. I am planning to use this at a two-gun competition next weekend and really excited to see how this guy does. I'm not going to try and get the muzzle device off before then because I wouldn't be running it with a can anyway. So after that, I'll keep trying to get that muzzle device off so I can throw a can on there and get a better idea of how the 5.56 conversion kit works out suppressed. As far as the 308 side, I'm going to keep trying to put more rounds through it and see if eventually it loosens up and the gassing issue fixes itself. I don't have a lot of faith that it will, but I will continue to use it suppressed and hopefully get it out to some longer ranges and really test the accuracy on this rifle, of course with the can on it. So stay tuned for that. I'll be coming out with more updates as this goes along, as I get some more range time through it and once it's done with its competition. So thank you guys for watching this update. Please like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more review content coming up soon.